Hello everyone and welcome to another game you guys have been requesting as soon as it finished. It is Team Uzbekistan versus Team India 1, and on board 1 we have Nodirbek Abdusattorov versus Pentala Harikrishna. Nodirbek still on a perfect score with 5 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws, and Harikrishna doing great, not losing a single game so far, but he does have 2 wins and 2 draws. And this game, it really shows how even in today, in 2022, the Giuoco Piano or the Italian game can still be as bloody as it was in the days maybe when Gioacchino Greco played it. So let's dive straight into it. Abdusattorov has the white pieces and he opens with e4. We have e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4 going for the Italian game. Bishop to c5 going for the Giuoco Piano, and now pawn to d3. I thought there was maybe a slight chance that we might see an Evans Gambit here, as Uzbekistan players have been the one to play it from time to time, but in faster events. But this is Olympiad, this is classical, so we stick with what is best. The Giuoco Pianissimo, we have pawn to d3, knight to f6, and here comes the move that I believe made the game as interesting as it was, and that is bishop to g5. Here there are a lot of other moves that are much more popular, like castle, c3, knight b to d2, but bishop to g5, it allows black a very, very unique set of moves that, you'll see what I mean by this, but it's just very hard for white to prove any sort of advantage here. So I think it's very interesting that Abdusattorov chooses this. We have h6 by Harikrishna. Of course, this is what you have to play. Bishop to h4, now pawn to d6. We have castles, and now usually everyone just goes g5 here. You kick away the bishop, then you shift this knight over to g6. You start a kingside attack, and everyone knows this. However, here, instead of this, we have the immediate pawn to a5. Harikrishna knows that in order to play well against white, you have to prevent white from playing b4 at all costs. So there will be time to play on the king side, but it's essential to play a5. So it is now as of move 7 that we have a completely new game. And okay, pawn to c3, now preparing to play a3, b4, d4, and so on. Bishop back to a7, the bishop will be much safer here. Also, you don't have to worry about any pawns gaining tempi on it. We have pawn to a4, and now a pawn to g5, attacking the bishop, bishop g3, and knight e7. The knight is now coming to g6, and then this knight might come to h5 to harass the bishop and so on. The bishop here is a monster, just controlling this entire diagonal, and you're basically going to have to worry about it for the rest of the game. So here, queen to b3. This is again a moment where things get very, very interesting. There are many other moves that you can choose to play, like knight a3, bringing the knight over to b5, try and harass that bishop, rook to e1. But queen to b3 is very, very aggressive, goes after the f7 pawn, and he's basically asking Harikrishna, are you going to castle? And Harikrishna does. We have castles, knight b to d2, and now knight to g6. So the setup is same as always, and here we have pawn to d4. So also white has a lot of pressure on black's king side, but it seems that it's just easier for black to put pressure on the white. Knight to h5, now going after the bishop on g3. And here, as the title suggests, you should never, underestimate the power of moving your king. If you've castle queen side, just move the king further left, and if you've castle king side, move the king all the way to the right. You do not want your king here ever. And king to h1 is the way to continue playing this. However, here after d captures on e5, Abdusattorov's position is dead lost, but only if Pentala finds a move. And he does. He plays knight captures on g3. We have h captures on g3, and now he plays d captures on e5, which gives back the advantage a little bit. Here, the immediate way to win is pawn to g4. And now, how are you playing this? The problem is this knight is guarding this knight. Once you move this knight and this opens up, this is a problem. And also, this is a problem. The bishop's still just, a complete monster. And also, once you play h5, h4, this is a problem. So, although this seems like many moves, problem is after knight to h2, we just play pawn to h5. And now what do you play? If he captures on d6, just queen captures on d6, and you resign here. There's no defense. This is hanging. Queen captures on g3 is a threat. As the f pawn is pinned, you're still just gonna play h4 capture. I mean, there's no defending this. So one reason why I believe Harikrishna did not go for this is that after g4, maybe you don't have to move the knight. Maybe you can play rook a to d1, and it's an incredibly complicated continuation, but one that you would definitely expect from Nodirbek. So if g captures on f3, knight captures. Now the white rook controls the d file, and after, let's say, queen e7, e captures on d6, pawn captures. Now knight to d4, blocking the bishop. Also maybe coming to f5 with all of this pressure. Could be very dangerous, but still, black should be perfectly fine here if black does not blunder all that much. So here, after a captures on g3, this is best. Harikrishna first goes for d captures on e5, and now we have rook a to d1, aligning the rook with the queen. But Harikrishna just goes g4 right away. He attacks the knight to h2, and now queen to g5. So how do you defend here? We have rook f to e1, and now king to g7. Unpinning from this diagonal, we have rook to e2, adding a defender here, and now pawn to h5, preparing h4, and of course h captures on g3. We have knight d to f1, adding another defender here, but just pawn to h4. And now the way to defend this is to actually capture. This is the way to do it. If queen captures, we just kick away the queen with the g3, and if knight captures, then we play rook to d3, and this should hold, you know. With perfect play, of course. However, after h4, rook to d3 right away was played, and now Harikrishna is allowed to capture on g3 himself. So h captures on g3, rook captures on g3, and now knight to f4, going after the rook here. And now there is no good way to save the rook. Problem is, if you move the rook, just knight h5 goes after this rook, and now if you want to save this rook, you have to play rook to d3, and then just g3, and white resigns. There is no defense here. Of course, this is impossible, so any trades here on the g3 square are favorable for black. Captures, of course, the f-pawn is pinned, and if you can't capture and you just have to wait for black to capture, then that's game over. So here, instead of moving the rook, he tries knight captures on g4, which looks plausible as the queen and king are on the g file, but well, Harikrishna is here to prove otherwise. Bishop captures on g4, and now knight to e3, preparing rook captures on g4. So now the only move that is good for black is bishop captures on e3, but it's not a difficult one to find. So Hari, of course, captures this, bishop captures on e3, rook e captures on e3, and now knight to g6. And here, finally, bishop back to e2. It seems like Abdusattorov is ready to win back his piece, but there is a problem. There is one move that, just wins the game on the spot for Harikrishna. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find this move while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on realizing that the white queen on b3 is completely undefended. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the only move that saves the game and wins the game for Hari is bishop to e6. This is what he played, and now there really isn't all that much for white to do here. So congratulations to everyone who found this. You offer your queen for white's queen and your up material. Of course, it would be completely winning for you. So Nodirbek cannot afford to trade queens here. He plays queen to b5, but now queen to f4. And you can't really start harassing the black queen here, hoping for some sort of a perpetual, for example, rook gf3, queen h4, and the bishop covers h3, so you can forget about that. So here, queen to c5 was played, going after queen captures on c7, but now just rook to h8. Hari says you can have all the material on the queen side you want. I'm going to double up on the h file and checkmate your king. So here, queen captures on c7. There is nothing better for Abdusattorov. Rook to h6, and now bishop to f3, but just rook to c8, chasing back away the queen before playing the rook to h8. queen captures on a5, and now rook c to h8, preparing rook to h1 checkmate, and there is no good way to counter this. King to f1 was played, rook to h1 check, now comes king to e2, and bishop to c4. Again, with check, you can see that there are very few squares that the white king can go to, d2 being the only one if you don't want to play rook to d3. So king to d2 was played, and here there are many moves that win the game, but Harikrishna chooses the one that wins, well, basically instantly. He plays rook to f1, and he was in this position on move 34 that Nodirbek Abdusattorov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So a brilliant victory for Harikrishna with the black pieces against so far untouchable Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who also defeated Fabiano Caruana with the black pieces in this event, and well, basically had a perfect run, but you know, it's always dangerous playing the Giuoco Pianissimo, especially if you try the sideline with bishop to g5 like it happened here. It's hard to say, you know, why he lost exactly, but he played an incredibly sharp tactical line where he simply got outplayed, as Harikrishna is an incredibly strong player. So, you know, even though Abdusattorov is the rapid world champion, he has to be careful when facing such strong opposition like Pentala Harikrishna. And here you resign basically because there is no defense against rook captures on f2. There is nothing you can do to stop rook captures on f2, and after that happens, it's just game over. Let's say you try and hide your king, just rook captures on f2 check, king b1, now rook h1 check, and that's it. Once you are done giving away material, it will be checkmate. There's nothing you can do about that. So yeah, after this wonderful rook to f1 move, Abdusattorov resigned, and a wonderful victory for Pentala Harikrishna in round 6 of the FIDE Olympiad. We're going to cover at least one more game, and then we are going to discuss what is happening with the standings. But what I can tell you so far, if you don't want to, you know, listen about the standings, then stop watching the video now. But the winners currently are Armenia. They are in clear first place, and in the second place, clear second place is United States, with a bunch of teams, like maybe 10 teams sharing third place, including Uzbekistan, India 1, India 2, France, and so on. So yeah, once again, really hope you guys enjoyed this. I would like to thank Esmond Alden, Jacob Tobias, Derek King, Felix Daffo, and Casey Vance for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Olympiad until it finishes. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day, and always careful when facing the Giuoco Pianissimo. See you soon.